Awakened people carry a truth that is both powerful and unsettling. A truth that does not come from books, teachings, or spiritual theories, but from direct inner experience. It is a truth that arises when a person finally sees through the layers of conditioning, stories, and illusions that shape ordinary human life. It is a quiet realization that everything the world teaches us to pursue as the source of happiness is temporary, fragile, and ultimately incapable of giving lasting peace. Awakened individuals discover that the real experience of freedom does not come from the outside world, but from a deep, still, and silent space within themselves. This realization transforms how they see life, how they respond to emotions, and how they navigate relationships. It is the beginning of a shift so profound that it becomes almost impossible to communicate to those who have not yet tasted it. Most people move through life believing that their happiness depends on something outside themselves. They believe it depends on success, approval, relationships, money, reputation, or goals. They live in a constant cycle of trying to achieve something, trying to fix something, trying to get somewhere. But for an awakened person, this cycle appears as a dreamlike state, driven by the ego's endless hunger. The awakened understand that the self we spend our lives protecting and strengthening is not our true self at all. It is a constructed identity shaped by the past, shaped by society, shaped by fears and desires. And once they see this illusion clearly, they can no longer take it as seriously as others do. This inner clarity makes awakened people different in a way that is hard to explain. They see the world with depth and softness, noticing the suffering behind people's actions, the insecurity behind their anger, and the longing behind their desires. They recognize that most human behavior is simply the ego trying to feel safe, important, or loved. But instead of judging, they feel compassion. Instead of reacting, they remain centered. Yet this understanding often cannot be spoken openly. Not because awakened people want to hide something, but because they know that truth delivered before someone is ready becomes meaningless or even disturbing. The truth they carry is not a secret knowledge. It is simply too subtle to fit into ordinary conversation. It is the understanding that life becomes peaceful the moment you stop fighting with yourself. It is the realization that nothing in the world can complete you because you were never incomplete. It is the awareness that joy arises naturally when the mind becomes still. These insights sound simple when spoken, but they only become real through experience. And this is why awakened people rarely try to explain the full depth of what they know. They understand that every person must arrive at their awakening through their own timing, their own struggles, their own moments of clarity. So the awakened carry this truth quietly. They live among others, yet they move from a different level of awareness. They participate in the world, yet they are not controlled by it. They love deeply, yet without attachment. They help others, yet without seeking praise. Their truth is not hidden because it is forbidden. It is hidden because it can only be seen when a person is ready to open their eyes from within. Awakened people quickly realize that the truth they carry cannot be shared openly with everyone, even when they genuinely want to help others. The reason is not secrecy, superiority, or spiritual pride. It is simply that most people are not ready to hear something that challenges the very foundation of how they understand themselves and the world. Awakening is not just learning new information. It is a shift in perception so profound that it breaks the ordinary way of thinking. When a person is still deeply attached to their identity, their beliefs and their emotional patterns, this truth feels threatening rather than liberating. Most people are deeply identified with their stories. They believe they are their thoughts, their achievements, their failures, their emotions, their past, and their image. They protect these things because they think these things define who they are. When the awakened say that the self we cling to is an illusion, it is not received as wisdom. It is received as confusion or even disrespect. It sounds as if the awakened are questioning people's entire existence. And because the ego is fragile, it reacts defensively. It resists, argues, rejects, or mocks what it cannot yet understand. This is why awakened people learn to speak their truth gently, selectively, and often silently. There is also a social reason this truth must remain hidden. Society is built on shared assumptions. People agree on what success means, what happiness means, what failure means, and what a meaningful life should look like. These ideas shape education, careers, relationships, and even spirituality. But the awakened see that these definitions are narrow and often unrealistic. They see that society encourages people to chase things that can never give them lasting fulfillment. If awakened people openly challenged these structures, many would feel threatened because it would shake the goals, values, and identities they have spent their entire lives building. Another reason the truth must be hidden is emotional readiness. Awakening is not only a shift in understanding, it is also a shift in emotional maturity. To grasp deeper truths, a person must have the ability to observe themselves without fear, without defensiveness, and without blame. They must be ready to question their assumptions, to let old identities dissolve, and to face uncomfortable inner realities. Many people are not prepared for this level of introspection. They want comfort, certainty, and emotional security. Awakening offers peace, but before that peace arrives, it brings a storm that breaks old illusions. Not everyone is ready for that storm. There is also a practical reason awakened people stay silent. When they speak too openly, they are often misunderstood. People might see them as strange, overly philosophical, detached, or unrealistic. Some may interpret their calmness as indifference, their clarity as arrogance, or their lack of attachment as lack of ambition. The awakened understand this and choose not to force their vision onto others. Instead, they speak in ways that match the listener's level of openness. They use simple words, subtle guidance, and quiet presence rather than forcing insights that would overwhelm someone. Ultimately, awakened people hide their truth not out of fear but out of wisdom. They understand that awakening cannot be pushed onto anyone. It must emerge naturally from within, at the exact moment a person is ready. Instead of preaching, the awakened live their truth. They embody peace, compassion, and clarity. They allow their presence to speak louder than their words. And when they meet someone who is truly ready, someone whose heart is open and whose mind is receptive, they share their understanding gently and humbly. Until then, the truth remains protected, waiting to be discovered by those who seek it sincerely. Awakened people carry their truth in a way that is quiet, steady, and almost invisible to those around them. They are not driven by the need to convince, convert, or correct anyone. Instead, their understanding becomes something they live rather than something they preach. This is one of the most subtle yet powerful aspects of awakening. The realization that truth does not need to be spoken loudly in order to transform lives. It only needs to be embodied fully. And so awakened individuals move through the world with a calmness that others sense but cannot always explain. Their silence is not emptiness. It is presence. It is awareness. It is the quiet knowing that truth is something each person must come to on their own terms, at their own pace, through their own experiences. Awakened people understand that forcing wisdom onto someone who is not ready only creates resistance. So instead of using words, they use their energy, their behavior, and their way of being as their message. They listen more than they speak. They observe more than they react. They act only when necessary, and when they do, their actions reflect clarity rather than impulse. Their silence becomes a mirror in which others begin to see themselves more clearly. It is this gentle influence, rather than direct teaching, that makes awakened individuals quietly transformative. Awakened people also choose silence because they know the nature of truth itself. Truth is not a belief, it is not an opinion, it is not a claim to be debated. It is an experience, it is a shift in consciousness. It cannot be handed to someone like advice, it must be discovered from within. And so instead of insisting on their perspective, awakened individuals allow others to explore life at their own depth, knowing that everyone awakens at the exact moment they are meant to. This silence also protects their peace. Awakened individuals see through the noise of conflict, ego, and endless argument. They understand that most debates are not actually about truth, but about identity. When someone argues, they are not defending facts, they are defending the self they believe themselves to be. The awakened do not participate in this because they no longer feel the need to defend an identity. Their ego is not the center of their life, so they have nothing to prove. Silence becomes their shield, not out of weakness, but out of deep inner stability. Where awakened people carry their truth is by choosing where to invest their energy. They do not waste time on meaningless conflict or relationships that drain their spirit. They do not try to change people who are committed to misunderstanding them. Instead, they gravitate toward meaningful conversations, authentic connections, and environments where growth is possible. Their silence acts like a filter, naturally separating those who are open from those who are not yet ready. Their presence itself becomes a kind of guidance. People may not fully understand why they feel calm around them, why they feel safe opening up, or why their perspective suddenly expands after a simple conversation. This is the silent influence of awakening. It operates without force, without preaching, and without the need for recognition. Awakened individuals also know that silence is a form of compassion. When they sense someone who is suffering or lost in illusions, they do not overwhelm them with spiritual theories. Instead, they offer understanding, they offer acceptance, they offer space. They know that sometimes listening is the highest form of support. Finally, awakened people carry their truth in silence because they understand the sacredness of it. Awakening is not entertainment. It is not something to show off. It is not a badge of honor. It is a doorway into a deeper reality. And like all sacred things, it must be held with humility. Their silence is their respect for the mystery of consciousness. In this way, awakened individuals walk through life like quiet lanterns. They do not announce their light. They simply shine. And those who are ready will see it. There comes a moment on the spiritual path when you realize that awakening isn't just about gaining clarity. It's also about learning discernment. Not everything you discover is meant to be spoken aloud, and not every truth you carry needs to be shared with the world. The awakened person understands that the deepest realizations are often too raw, too pure, and too disruptive for the ordinary mind to accept. This is not about superiority. It's about compatibility. Some truths belong to silence, not to conversation. Some insights are meant to be lived, not explained. The awakened individual quickly learns that the world operates on a completely different frequency. Society depends on structure, predictability, and a shared belief system. When someone steps outside of that system, when someone sees through it to the deeper reality beneath, it can make others uncomfortable. You become a mirror that shows people truths they are not prepared to face. And because of this, your understanding becomes something that must be carried with humility, not announced with pride. Sharing too much of your awakening can invite misunderstanding, judgment, or even hostility. People may think you're arrogant, delusional, or strange simply because your perspective no longer fits the conventional frame. It's like trying to describe the sky to someone who has lived their whole life underground. They won't understand, not because they are incapable, but because it's not yet time for them to see what you see. The awakened person respects timing. They respect readiness. They know that forcing truth onto someone only creates resistance. So you carry your awareness quietly, like a flame protected from the wind. You don't hide it out of fear. You hide it out of wisdom. You share only with those who truly seek, who ask from the heart rather than curiosity. You reveal only to those who are ready to listen without defending their illusions. You offer truth the way a healer offers medicine, only when it can help, never when it can harm. Living with this hidden truth doesn't isolate you. It strengthens you. It teaches you patience, compassion, and inner steadiness. You begin to appreciate solitude not as loneliness but as clarity. You stop trying to convert anyone or prove anything. You simply live your truth, silently, naturally, authentically. Your presence becomes your message, your calm becomes your teaching, and your life becomes your demonstration of what awakening really is. And instead of shouting truth to the world, you embody it quietly. When people sense something different in you, something calm, something grounded, something unshakable, they may ask questions. They may feel inspired. They may begin their own search. That is how truth spreads among awakened souls, not through loud declarations, but through subtle resonance. To hold a truth that others cannot yet understand is not a burden, it's a responsibility. It means you've grown. It means you've seen beyond the surface. And it means that now your job is not to convince others of what you know, but to live in a way that honors the depth of your understanding. This is why awakened people keep their one deepest truth hidden, not out of secrecy, but out of love for a world that is still waking up slowly, one person at a time.